Hi, Ann. Kelsey from William & Mary. I was wondering if you could shed some more light on the Crowley Gates issue and your feelings on the beer party.
Well, what is interesting about that is, like I say, the perfect illustration of my book where the powerful people are attacking the white working class cop and acting like he's oppressing them somehow. And what disturbs me about it, I mean, even now, okay, the beer summit and the media completely forget about it. Well, they wouldn't have forgotten about it if they had been able to find one black mark against Sergeant Crowley. I mean, he was like the cop chosen by God. How many cops in America have given mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to a famous black athlete? I mean, probably a lot of them run the diversity and tolerance training classes, which Crowley also did. How many cops have never been accused, falsely or otherwise, of some act of racial profiling or racism? If they had found that in his background, if he had had one blemish, he'd be Mark Furman. I mean, the same thing was done to Mark Furman. So just by a roll of the dice in this case, the race mongers, desperate to create their Emmanuel Goldstein of the month and claim this happens all the time, you know, sorry, you didn't get it in this case, and now we're all supposed to shut up about it. Well, you know, as long as they brought it up, I think it's worth mentioning that as far as I can remember, almost every one of these cases of police racism or racial profiling, from Tawana Brawley, not even just the cops, right, up to the Duke lacrosse cases. The acts of overt racism in America are almost always hoaxes. I mean, I'm sure it happens, everything happens, but is it an epidemic? Well, as I describe in Guilty, I go on for pages of all of the fake incidents of alleged racism. People, and often they're white liberals who are so desperate to be victims. There was that woman at Claremont College, one of my all-time favorites, who totally coincidentally taught courses on tolerance. She was not black or Jewish herself, though I think she was converting to Judaism in hopes of being a victim of anti-Semitism someday. And she was going into Claremont College to teach a class on, you know, the pervasiveness of racism and anti-Semitism. And she came out, and lo and behold, her car had been vandalized and smashed up, and all these racist and anti-Semitic spray painted all over her car. And so for the next couple of weeks, the campus was in an uproar. It was made national news. And they had to have, and you see her in these photos, still on the web, leading the rallies they were having against racism, with her right there smack dab in the middle. And then, you know, 5 minutes of investigation, and the cops find witnesses saying she did it herself. We saw her. We were wondering, why is this white woman painting this on a car? And she admitted it. But you get cases like that a lot. So, you know, maybe instead of looking at the epidemic of racial profiling, we should be looking at the epidemic of people making false accusations of racism. And like I say, I didn't bring up the Crowley case. They brought it up.
Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Coulter. My name's Joel Gerke. I'm from Hillsdale College.
Oh, it'll be nice to me there.
I like it too. In 2001, you wrote an article, I've forgotten the headline now, but basically you warned Republicans, as I recall, to be careful not to try to govern and enact conservative principles and policies according to democratic and progressive methods. I believe that was the kind of the general import of it.
I'm not sure I remember that column. That doesn't sound like me. That sounds like the opposite of me. In fact, you remind me, if I could just leap in, why this is the opposite of me.
Please.
One additional point on the AstroTurf thing is, I kind of wish they were AstroTurfers out there, and I wish Republicans would, like, hire, I don't know, homeless people to come in and protest health care. Because the one thing I keep saying is, liberals will never learn by example. Oh, no, not till their ox is gored do they learn a lesson. Take, for example, sexual harassment. No, how many CEOs have had to pay millions of dollars or been fired because they called their secretary honey? And then we get a president who's not only a sexual harasser, actually apparently a rapist, engaging in indecent exposure. And suddenly they think maybe these sexual harassment laws have gone too far. We haven't heard a lot about sexual harassment since Clinton. No, you have to do the same thing to them that they do to us.
No, I don't mean that we shouldn't use Facebook and all the marketing methods and political techniques, but...
No, I mean the same dirty tricks.
Well,
to get them to stop.
Well, you know...
I mean, just for a gag. Oh, I'll give you another one.
Okay.
Sorry, I know you're trying to get your question out. I think the Supreme Court, just for a gag, for like a month, we need to get 5 justices to start engaging in judicial activism on the right. Because the New York Times keeps trying to confuse this issue, that acting like, and liberals, this is a big thing you will hear them say all the time, that judicial activism is when the Supreme Court overrules Congress or a state legislature. That isn't judicial activism. If Congress passes a law saying, you know, we've just banned free speech, then of course the Supreme Court reads the Constitution, no, oh, there's a provision on free speech, and you can't ban it. So that isn't judicial activism. Judicial activism is hallucinating when you read the Constitution. So I'm thinking we get 5 Supreme Court justices to start engaging in some real conservative activism, and that is they'll look at the penumbras and the emanations, and they will discover the right to a flat tax. They will discover the right, oh, the real right to bear arms, and I mean nuclear arms. And I think, just for laughs, the right to free champagne for blondes. Yes, we see it here in the penumbras and the emanations. And then liberals will suddenly acknowledge what judicial activism is, and they'll stop doing it.
Maybe I made a mistake by mentioning...
Trying to quote me.
Well, no.
Because you got me totally wrong. Just make your question.
No. Well, I don't mean, again, political techniques, but that progressives and conservatives are different. Perhaps I made a mistake by mentioning Democrats, but what I'm wondering is perhaps in the last several years, we had this tendency to save the world according to our own kind of Republican ideas, where instead of handing out entitlement plans and welfare to right all these past wrongs, we took the laudable free market theory and your social conservative pro-life issues and such, and tried to fell into the trap of pushing them with the federal government. And we ended up with the Fed guaranteeing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and a bailout in October, which the McCain campaign and the Bush administration supported. I mean, it's certainly gotten worse since then. And as far as social conservatives go, we moved away from state referenda, which are working. We got the Harriet Miers nomination, although we ended up with Alito.
The crowd is getting restless. The well-dressed mob. I hear them shuffling their hush puppies. So I think you better
I'm an
jump
English
right
major.
into
I
the
run
question.
along. So maybe we need to investigate this, whether we haven't kind of lost our allegiance to Republicans, maybe sometimes compromises conservatism.
Fine. I got the question.
Great.
Right in there with you. This is why I'm pleading with you all to run for office. Well, make money now so you can run for office when you're old enough. Young man, you're very attractive. I think you'd make a fine candidate. But yeah, of course, we're not very happy with Republicans. Okay, I'll give you another Ann Coulter aphorism. There are a lot of bad Republicans. There are no good Democrats. So we need more good Republicans. I mean, this is the whoop and wharf of American politics, which is why I don't think we have to worry very much about the Obama administration. And I've been my usual Pollyanna self since the night of Obama's election, which I've got to tell you, every time a Republican has lost, even, you know, Bob Dole, you know, whomever, I was always really depressed election night, even when you could see it coming from 100 miles. The night McCain lost, didn't feel a thing. I just thought, I'm sick of apologizing for these Republicans. And what has happened historically is, I mean, it is a conservative country. In polls all the time, you see that there are a lot more Republicans, or people who identify themselves as Republicans. Something like 38% will call themselves conservatives. Only like 15% will call themselves liberal. So the more the Republican Party is identified as the conservative party, the more support we'll have. The Rockefeller Republicans we shall always have with us. You must swat them down whenever they appear because they keep losing elections. But what happens is you will have 8 or 12-year dominance by Republicans, and then, Jimmy Carter for 4 years. And then Americans realize, oh, that's why we were voting for Republicans before. And then they vote a Republican in again, and we get 12 years, Reagan, Bush. And then people think, let's give the Democrats a try. How bad can it be? And you get Clinton, and 2 years later, you have the first Republican Congress in 40 years. I mean, Clinton could only operate for his first 2 years, and then we have the Republican Congress and Newt Gingrich sending Bill Clinton things that he would sign. That's what saved Bill Clinton's presidency, by the way. And I think we're seeing the same thing with Obama now. If there's a huge Republican revolution next year, it could be the best thing that happened to Obama. If he gets a Republican Congress and is completely constrained from governing the way he and his advisors would like him to, he could end up like Bill Clinton. He'll call himself a Democrat, but it will basically be Republican governance, and then we will have peace and prosperity.
Thank you for your answers and, of course, your time.
Thanks.